Hello everyone, today's video is called Climate and Weather, and as you watch we're going to take jot/stead notes in our portfolio so that tomorrow in class we can do our activity to help us learn it a little better. So climate and weather is our topic, is our title for today. You could put today's date at the top of your page as well. Okay, and we're going to start, our first subtitle is going to be weather. So the first part of weather and climate is to talk about weather. Weather is the condition of air and sky from day to day. So if you look out the window, what do you see happening? Is it sunny? Is it cloudy? Is it rainy? Is it snowing? Is it foggy? That is all what weather is. Every day when you look out the window, what is the sky doing? And we measure weather in two different ways. Precipitation is the first. Precipitation is the word we use for anything that falls from the sky that's water, so whether it's frozen or not. So it could be rain, sleet, hail, or snow. That's all called precipitation. And then we also measure weather by temperature, how hot or cold the air is. So in the summertime, the air tends to be warmer. In the wintertime, the air tends to be cooler, and that's temperature. So that's what weather is. Now, we just mentioned rain, sun, snow, cloudy. Those are typical weather patterns that you would see on a day-to-day basis, especially where we live. But there are also some examples of extreme weather. So weather can also, go to the extremes. So some examples of extreme weather I have listed here. Extreme weather would include things like cyclones, hurricanes, typhoons, tornadoes, blizzards, monsoons, which are heavy, heavy rains that happen especially in Southeast Asia, and drought, when there's a lack of rain over an extended period of time. So extreme weather can affect humans, and that's part of human-environment interaction from the 5 themes, when extreme weather impacts human beings. So now that we've talked about weather, let's start talking about climate. Climate is a little bit of a bigger topic, and it's a little bit more important to us as geographers because the overall patterns, which is what climate is, which you can see at the top, are going to affect the way people live in certain places. So our definition for climate is the average weather over time, over years, not just a few days. Where weather is a few days, climate is years in a specific place. So here's a map of climate zones. You can see the different colors. You can see different parts of the world have different climates. And we're going to talk about the main climate zones in just a moment. But remember, the difference between weather and climate is that weather is what's happening from day to day in the air and in the sky. And climate is the patterns of weather that you can expect in a place over time. So the different climate zones on Earth look like this, okay? And the main factor that impacts climate is latitude. So you have to think back a little bit to when we were doing latitude and longitude and the skill that we're still using, because where you fall on the map depends on what type of climate you're going to have. So if we look here, we have this line here, and you might recognize it as the equator. So that's the equator. And when you live on or near the equator, you're going to get a type of climate called tropical. Tropical is hot and wet, so rainy. Okay? Hot all year, rainy all year. Then if we move up or down from the equator, we have this dry area. Another word for dry is arid. And these are at your tropics. Okay, so you have the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. So Tropic of Cancer, Capricorn. We don't need the S there or there. Okay, so you have your 2 tropics. Around the tropics are dry areas. So if you look, you're going to find on the map that where the tropics run through the map, we're always going to find that's where deserts are on the Earth's surface, or around those areas. So when we start to study Africa and Asia and South America, we're going to see that the places where the tropics run through are the places where deserts occur on our Earth's surface. So moving again away from the equator, up or down, we hit temperate. Now temperate is sort of in between. You have a little bit of both. You've got warm times and you've got cool times. You've got wet times and you've got dry times during the year. And if you look, Connecticut would be right around there. We fall in a temperate zone. So you have partly warm during the year and partly cool during the year. So you have a summer and a winter. Same thing down here. Partly warm, partly cool. Okay? And going up one more time, we've got our polar regions, which are cold or cool all year long. Okay? So that's how climate zones are affected by polar regions. Okay? So if we were to draw a map of this, you kind of do a circle like this. Put your equator in the middle, and that is tropical. So this is an easy way to draw this. So if you want to draw it along with me in your portfolio, I think that would be a great idea. Then we go about halfway, and we could use the dotted lines just so that it sticks out to us, the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Those are our arid regions, which means dry, and hot, dry and hot as well. Then in the middle here we have temperate, which means that it's right in between. There are some cool times, there are some warm times. And then go ahead and draw those two lines at the top and the bottom, the Arctic circles, and those are your polar climates. So you should have something like this drawn in your notes. Okay. Those are your climate zones. Okay? So there's a few other things that we need to know about climate. A couple of things affect climate. We just talked about how latitude affects climate, what climate zone are you in, based on where you fall on the globe. So if you're near the equator, you're going to live in a tropical climate. If you're on the Tropic of Cancer or Capricorn, you're going to live in a more arid region, dry and warm. If you live at the top or bottom, you're going to live in a polar climate, which is cool all the time, cool or cold. A couple of other things that impact climate are landforms. Is there anything blocking or redirecting the wind? So we're going to see that in some cases where mountains are, like this, it blocks wind and rain, and the area back here becomes arid, even if it's not in an arid zone on latitude, because the mountains are blocking all the rain, and it can't fall, so that area becomes dry. We're going to see that when we talk about the Andes Mountains in South America. The area behind the Andes is a desert because the rain can't get to the ground. The mountains block it. Another thing that impacts climate is elevation. What happens in elevation is that as you go up, the air gets colder. Okay? And this is called vertical climate. So what happens is, again, I'll draw it again, on a mountain. So we're talking about the word vertical. Vertical means going up, like this. So as you go up, the air temperature gets colder, which is why we see snow at the tops of mountains a lot of times, because it doesn't matter where that mountain is on the map, because the higher you go, the higher that mountain pushes up as the plates move, the higher it goes, the colder the air gets. So this is a picture here of Mount Kilimanjaro. Mount Kilimanjaro is located right on the equator, really. It's very close to the equator on the continent of Africa. And so you can see down here the grass is green, it's nice and warm. Elephants need to live in a warm climate, so there they are. But if you look at Mount Kilimanjaro, there's all snow at the top. And this is all vertical climate because the ground, even though the temperature down here is tropical, as the mountain goes up, you've got snow at the top because the air has gotten colder. And that's vertical climate. Very important, and we're going to see it over and over again as we learn about different mountain ranges around the world. One other thing that we need to know about climate is that climate impacts vegetation. So vegetation are the types of plants that grow in a certain climate. So depending on what your weather patterns are over time, which is climate, it's going to impact the types of things that can grow in the place where you live. So if you live in an arid climate, you're not going to get lots of green plants like this. You're going to get more what's called desert scrub, which are these like small little bushes, and cacti. If you live in a tropical climate, then you will get this. This is more like rainforest type vegetation. Lots of green, lots of vines. Very lush is the word we use for that. Okay? If you live in a temperate climate like we do, you might see the changing of the seasons and the leaves falling, like we have here in this picture and we're experiencing right now. And then here we have, this is what vegetation looks like in a polar climate. So even in a polar climate, there are sometimes like short springs on the lower side of the polar climates where there aren't complete ice caps and it's cold all year long. So you will get some small vegetation like this, little like short pieces of grass or short bushes like that. So vegetation depends on what type of climate you have. Okay. And then just to wrap up, here's a little compare and contrast chart. You don't need to copy this whole thing. I just want you to make sure that you have all of this information for each one. For weather, you need the definition. Weather is measured by precipitation and temperature, and then some examples of extreme weather. And then over here we have the definition of climate. We drew our climate map like this, so you should kind of have something that looks similar to this on in your notes. And then climates depend mostly on latitude, landforms, and elevation, and then vegetation. So thanks for watching this video. I hope it helps you understand what climate is a little bit better, and I will see you in class to explore this concept a little bit further.